Hi, friends. Welcome to the Quaker Take. I'm Bill, and I have my friend Greg here with me, and we're going to talk about All of Us Strangers. How you doing, Greg?
Good, good.
Great. Yeah, we had a chance to see All of Us Strangers together at the theater recently, and yeah, I was so glad to be able to see it. I had actually seen it before, so this was my second viewing. It was your first. We thought it would be fun to talk about this from a Quaker perspective. So, yeah, all of us strangers. First thoughts. Any thoughts? First thoughts, Greg?
I really liked it, but it was hard. I mean, I thought it was really like lonely. I thought the loneliness really kind of got to me. um, but the acting was superb and really interesting film. Good writing. So yeah,
Yeah, agreed. It was not definitely not a popcorn type movie. Just fun and fun movie. Definitely dealt with some serious issues, but nevertheless, in a very good way. I thought very well
yeah.
done way. This movie was directed by Andrew Haigh and came out in 2023. And from what I've seen of the box office, it has not done gangbusters at the box office in the U.S. anyway. I think it's had a very limited release though. So this discussion we will be talking spoilers. So there will be spoilers in this discussion. So if you haven't seen the movie yet and you want to save it, then go watch the movie somewhere and then come back and watch the discussion later because we will be discussing all aspects of All of Us Strangers. So yeah, stars Andrew Scott as Adam and Paul Mescal as his neighbor Harry, and his parents are played by Jamie Bell and Claire Foy. So Andrew Scott is a writer who lives a rather solitary existence in this high rise in London, right? And it seems like his building was empty pretty much, except for like one other tenant that lives on a different floor. The character played by Paul Mescal, and I gathered like early on in the movie that we were going to be dealing with loneliness because of that vibe, that loneliness vibe. When he was writing, the character Adam is a writer, and he seems to be reminiscing about something because he's writing about like a suburban home and things like that. His neighbor drunkenly comes to his door one night and wants to come in and basically propositions him, and he turns him down. And then he goes on this journey that we don't really know what he's doing, but he's going out of the city on a train, and he meets this man who then takes him to a house, and we discover it is his parents from 30 years ago or so, right? And the parents are, we find out, basically, they're dead. I
It
guess
takes us it takes us a while to
it's just
figure all this
trying to
out.
figure that out.
It
Yeah,
doesn't take. It's not the. We don't realize it. Maybe the whole first visit or something. I don't know. It takes a while. Yeah.
it does take a while because it took a while to figure out who the guy was that he met in the park. That
Yeah.
was his dad, because the guy he meets in the park is essentially his age, and
Right.
so you don't put it together that that's his dad.
Well, you
And
get this. You thought that they were sort of like going to have a romance in the forest somehow, and then,
that's
yeah,
what it
that's what
sort
I
of
thought.
seemed like. Yeah,
Yeah, like a park that gay guys go to, and yeah.
yeah,
So,
it sort of seemed like maybe they were going to have some kind of like
so
hookup, and
yeah. So at
then
first you're really stretching. Sorry, I
yeah,
didn't know. Yeah,
because it kind of got an odd kind of vibe, but
yeah,
it turns out to be his dad.
yeah. I
Um,
know.
yeah,
Right.
and then the rest of the movie is essentially him going back to visit his parents and come to terms with issues from his childhood and their deaths in a car accident. That's one storyline. Then we have the neighbor, Paul Mescal, who he does eventually get in a relationship with, and then we find out at the end there's a twist ending there at the end that is one of the reasons why you don't want the movie spoiled, because I didn't see this ending coming. I think you said you kind of saw it coming. I didn't the first time I saw it, but the neighbor is actually also a ghost. So um, that was that was pretty wild. But it's a beautiful kind of love story in a way. The parent child love and the love between the Adam character and the neighbor played by Paul Mescal. I thought kind of a beautiful story there.
Say more about the parents. Let's go through that a little slowly. Like the what you. I'm interested in your thoughts on that. The parent love and the yeah. Talk more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like his parents died when he was, I believe, 12, and so it had left him lost. And he was also lost actually while they were still alive. I think because he was bullied, a bullied child, and it's mentioned in the movie he had tried to run away. I think he was just trying to find like a place to go where maybe he could be at peace. So there was a conflict with the parents, with the father, who he had not comforted him when he knew he was being bullied. There's a fantastic sort of interaction between the father and the Adam character. Um, but that coming to terms with, I think the beautiful part about it was that us, the viewer, were able to see him as an adult because we think of him as an adult. Because when we met the character, he's an adult. He's interacting with his parents, though, as an adult, but to them, he's still a boy, a child. And so he is. We're able to sort of see that reconciliation kind of almost in an adult way, but through not through the child's eyes, but through the child's experience. And I thought that that was played really well by Adam as far as like making us feel like he's a child around them still. But he was able to see, I believe, coming together as adults, they were able to get to know each other kind of as adults.
One thing you left out, I think he knew he was gay, but he didn't feel comfortable telling his mom and dad about it. He was only 12, I
Only
guess.
12, yeah.
But he didn't feel yeah. And then he goes through that phase of telling them, which I thought was really clever. And yeah, so interesting, to tell his mom who's a ghost. And by that time, he sort of knows she's a ghost, kind of maybe,
Mm-hmm.
that he's gay. And the way she reacted was interesting. And the way the dad reacted after when he knew, too. So it was all that. I thought that was just amazingly imaginative writing.
Yeah, the part whenever he tells his mom, and she's bringing up these things sort of from the 80s because time has stopped for them
Right.
in like 1987. And he's saying like, well, things are different. But then the viewer, we see in his life, his current life, are they all that different? I mean,
Yeah.
he still had sort of some of the same issues that she brings up from back in the 80s, although he's trying to convince her that things are different. Um,
I have a question for you. I thought that he wasn't really comfortable with his sexuality, even as an adult.
yeah, because
Yeah.
he was very withdrawn and with very hesitant to
Yeah.
have the relationship with the neighbor. First of all, to even let him into the apartment, which he didn't do the first time.
That's right. Yeah.
And then when he did let him in, and they do begin to have a physical relationship. It's all really rather awkward, and I kind of think that was the purpose of the club scene when they go out to a club it was sort of a symbolic thing of where he had lived this sort of isolated life and he was then kind of going out into a more of a social setting and sort of being a little more relaxed.
He was a braver when he was with the partner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think I think the two characters are the two actors whose names I don't remember off the top of my head. I thought they were just so good together, and their relationship was really tender. And I do think we were all rooting for it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's when there's a twist at the end because I think we're all like, go ahead, finally. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So it was it's funny, but I mean, I do think the loneliness came out for me in the very beginning. The scene was very quiet. There was no talking, and he sort of, we saw him writing, eating, looking out the window, and then it's like hours later, and he's sort of doing the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just nothing has changed. And so, I really thought they did a really good job of portraying this guy who was really, although he lived on the top floor of this high rise, and was successful in some way in life, he was very isolated and lonely, just lonely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But he had to deal with. He kind of wanted. I guess before he had to move forward, he had to go back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the just the Quaker idea of simplicity there with the boyfriend. He lived a fairly simple life, even though he was in this sort of luxury high rise. Um, and then whenever he envisions his life with the neighbor, with the boyfriend, they envision things like watching TV together and having pizza. He's working on his writing. The boyfriend's over there reading a book. So it is a still sort of a simple pleasure in each other's company, that they're able to sort of find there. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, they were very peaceful together.
Yeah, and then of course we have the death, coming to the terms with the death of the parents, and then also the death of the boyfriend, and how that was portrayed in the movie, where the sort of afterlife aspect of the parents needing to go ahead and leave this whatever realm they're in, because they're actually they're not like roaming our world. They're in the 1987 world. I noticed, because all the cars are 1987. The mall is 1987 that they visit. So it's kind of like almost a different realm. But they leave, and then when they leave, they're one thing they're curious about is how they had died, if they had been quick. And then when they make the decision to leave, the dad, who died instantly, is instantly out of the scene. We don't see him disappear, but he's instantly out of the scene. The mom, who lingered for a couple of days and had lost her eye and couldn't see very well, loses eyesight, but she can feel his hand, something she wasn't able to do in the hospital. He was able to provide that comfort. And then with the boyfriend ghost at the end, it's it's he was providing the parents were providing Adam comfort in that scene in the diner when they're disappearing and going to the other realm. And it seems like it was him providing the ghost of the boyfriend comfort to go ahead and move on at the end there, the end of the movie. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, the parents were. It's funny to think about 1987 being so far in the past, but yeah, I think they were in the sense of their first question to him when he said he was gay was, "Is he safe?" Or like, "Are you?" It was all of the kind of those questions that people used to ask in the
Mm-hmm.
old days, maybe like, "Are you lonely?" Right? I guess because I think back in those days, parents didn't want their kids to be gay because they would be shunned, right?
Which he had been as a kid.
Yeah, and then he had been, and they didn't really want to hear it at the
Mm-hmm.
time. I mean, I don't think it's hard for a parent to hear that. It's kind of tough to hear about your own child. So it's funny how kids instinctively protect their parents by not telling them things that they can't handle. Um,
That's true. That's true. My dad asked me one time, "Do kids pick on you?" And I told my dad, "Not much." Which it's true. I wasn't picked on that much, but um, I
yeah,
didn't want to explain it all to him at that point. So,
yeah.
um,
That's. I mean, I think one of the things about this movie for me, and my mom has passed away for 5 years. This thought of being able to talk to her about things that we didn't talk about. Yeah, I mean, it was just. I thought that was such a interesting. thing to make you think about what you would say to your mom. What I would say to my mom,
Yeah.
I thought it was a lovely way to give us permission to do that in this like outworldly kind of situation, it was remarkable that way, but sad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know, when I'm focusing on the Quaker values in this movie, I don't know. I'm a little bit stumped in some ways. I don't think that I do think that like maybe the Quakers are in 1987 too. I don't see too many books or too much written material from Quakers post 1987 that says how Quakers navigate this new world of social media and dating and romance. I don't know. So
Mm-hmm.
I I like would as a let's go to that pivotal scene where you're right. The the two men see each other outside for briefly, and then lo and behold, the one guy knows where the other guy lives and knocks on his door, and he asks to come in. And the guy at the door is like, the Adam, the main character, is very hesitant and blocks the door kind of and won't let him in. Now, is there Quaker? Is there what's the Quaker?
If I mean, if Adam were a highly functioning Quaker, what would he do?
Something like that, yeah. Like what's that? What's that? Because they didn't know each other. They're
Mhm.
anonymous at that point. He was like, "Hi, I don't know, remember his name, but and then
Harry was the neighbor. Was named Harry, and
Harry, yeah. So
Adam was
Adam. So Harry says to Adam, "Can I come in?" And Adam says no, and he says, "Are you scared?" And Adam says no, and
but he was, of course.
everybody in the audience is like, "You
are." That I think the thing to have done would have been, and I'm not judging Adam because God knows he had issues, but
yeah,
if things had been, if he didn't have that fear that was blocking him, he would have maybe been able to see that how much hurt the neighbor was actually in, that he wasn't able to, because of his own fear, he wasn't able to see that his neighbor was in a whole lot of deeper pain than he was in.
right,
And he was drunk, and he was all but begging for some sort of connection to another human at that point, and he just wasn't able to see through his fear to see that of the divine in another person. I mean, he wasn't able to do that, and I'm not judging him for that, because we do this everyone does this all the time, where you get blocked by something going on in your own life and you don't see the other person hurting way more than you right across from you, I think. So um, yeah, I mean, it would have been great if he just said, okay, come in and I'll make you a cup of coffee or something.
So
But
I think you're on a good point there, and I like that. Is that I do think that one of the things that I like about my Quaker faith is that sense that it helps me get over my fears.
mhm,
Like we don't when when you sit and reflect, and then that emotion of for me when the emotion of fear comes, which I think it's a big part of my life in some ways, I can, with the silence and the presence and all the things that we've been thinking about, it doesn't take over.
mhm.
I feel like I'm not alone so much, and I have, I don't know, yeah. But I think that's a tough, I mean, the forcefulness of Harry, the guy who knocked on the door, that's a lot of force that he came to the door with, like it was a big, that's a lot for anyone
To take on, yeah,
to take
yeah.
on. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe if it said, let's go out and get a drink.
Hmm. Well, it's hard for me.
Yeah.
Quakers have this thing where where we're all friends, right? Everybody in the world is. That's why we call each other friends. That I think that's why we call each other friends, is that to try to see that friend in everyone. And if you frame your life that way, it can be really beneficial. Like, I don't know this person, but this person is my friend, can be my friend. Because and that, of course, in practice is very, very difficult to do, because we put up all sorts of like barriers and gateways to that because we don't want to be hurt ourselves. We don't want to be troubled too much sometimes, or take on more than we think we can handle. And so, again, I'm not judging Adam for shutting the door on the guy that night, but um, it's just something to think about. Something that what we could have done differently.
Because
Also,
we learned that Harry did need help.
we learn in the course of the movie that he needed help really badly, and if he had just had that cup of coffee that night, both of their lives would have been
Yeah.
vastly different.
That's interesting. Yeah. See, that's a good thing to stop and go through that scene like that and pull it apart. It just so
Mhm.
much more kind of comes out of it that I hadn't even thought of. But it was, yeah. You got the luxury of seeing it twice, so.
Yes, true. And I
But
can't
still,
wait for it to be on streaming because I would like to see it again. It was one of my favorite movies that was released in 2023, and I saw it right at the end of the year. Well, I think it was released in the US right at the end of the year. I saw it the end of December the first time, and we saw it here in February, early February,
right.
again. But I could see it again. It's one of those movies I can probably see again. Um, and probably take something different away this another time if I watch it. So,
Well,
yeah.
for me, it was so sad when I was watching it that I sort of had this kind of fantasy that I wanted to see them, the two actors in a movie that was like a buddy film, like
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Bob Hope
You
and
mentioned that. Yeah.
Bing Crosby. I mean, because I guess just before I had seen, we had gone to the movies a week or so. I went with my kids to see Merrily We Roll Along on Broadway
Hmm.
with Daniel Radcliffe, and the other actors are just as good as he is. But that's a story of like two guys, and one's a lyricist, and the other's whatever, the composer, and
Hmm.
their careers, and they're very, the whole play is about them and their relationship and it having fallen apart. But see, that's what I wanted to see, those two actors kind of like dance around like merrily. I wanted them to have a little bit more fun because fun was in short supply. Although their relationship was very tender, um, I guess even the whole time it was sort of brooding, right? For me, yeah, I don't know when exactly I picked on the fact that I thought that he was a ghost, but he said one thing and I was like, ghost. Um,
I
but
did not see that coming at all. I really
yeah,
didn't.
but
Um,
yeah, I just so it was so it made me sad. It just made it sad. So yeah,
well, it was sad, but the ending I thought was very redemptive to me, um,
yeah. Tell me more about that.
because I feel like the ghost, it ends in this cosmic thing, where they're in the bed, they're in bed and sort of mimicking the bed where he's dead in his apartment. They're in the bed in the Adams apartment,
Right, right,
and he they the ghost, the boyfriend, turns away from him and looks the other way. But then Adam sort of spoons him. But then they're in kind of like uh, a fetal position together, spooning. But then it turns into the camera pans out and it becomes like really small, then it becomes a pinpoint, then it becomes a star, then it becomes a constellation, then it becomes
yeah,
cosmos. And so to me that was sort of symbolic of the ghost went ahead and was able to die in peace. The ghost was very hurt when he realized he was dead and that no one had found him, that he had been laying in the dead in that apartment for who knows how long, and no one had noticed. And then Adam, the living guy says, "Well, I found you," and he sort of rescues that. He sort of rescued the ghost, and the ghost ended up kind of not dying alone because the ghost really died when he went up into the stars and at the end of the movie. To me, not when he actually his heart started stopped beating, and so he was sent off with love after all. So to me, it was kind of redemptive in that sense. And it's not Quaker theology, but I have heard of theology called I think it's Catholic, bearing one another's burdens. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
We don't have we don't really have theology in Quaker, but it's not something we practice, right? But it's the idea that you can take the burdens of others and carry them um, for them. So you take part of their pain or you take part of their burden and you say, "Let me carry that for you," and you carry it for them. And according to the book I read that mentioned this, which was a work of fiction, but it was a theological fiction fantasy by Charles Williams called "The Descent into Hell." And I have a chat on that on my book channel. But to descend into hell, you can actually supposedly do this to dead people too. So if someone died in pain or something, you can sort of it's almost like holding them. We would say as Quakers maybe holding them in light or lifting them up in light, and it actually in that sort of framework has an impact spiritually, even on someone that's dead. Um, for what that's worth.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah.
But yeah, the ending, yeah, the first time I saw it, I was a little more disturbed because I really wanted them to live happily ever after. I wanted the Hollywood ending where, oh,
Mm.
these two lonely people got together and then they found each other and now everything's
Yeah.
great. But life doesn't happen like that.
Their chemistry was something. It was really good. So
Yeah, they really had really good chemistry. Um, I think the actors. So
yeah.
really, that kind of movie could have very easily kind of gone over the top and become something else. I thought it
As we
was.
s- as we were talking at the coffee shop, the parents, the actors who played his parents, were marvelous too, because that could have been so. That was really hard to convey,
Mm-hmm.
um, but they did a masterful job
They
of it.
really did. The dad. I thought. Um,
Yeah,
I think dads sometimes have a hard time with sons because, especially with sons, but probably also with daughters. But just
yeah,
speaking as a son myself, um, where you want your dad to be strong because children need their dad to be strong to be kind of like a protector, and children need to feel safe and children need to feel like everything's going to be okay on the one hand, but then on the other hand they want their father to when they grow up they say, "My father was so cold and distant to me," and those being both strong and everything's going to be okay, don't worry about things, and being let me hug you because you got beat up at school. I'm not a father so I don't know, but I feel like that's a difficult balance for a father to portray. And I believe in the movie, we only get like a one scene where the dad and the son reenact this sort of thing from the past. And I feel like all that sort of was conveyed um, in that moment where the Adam says something like, "You didn't want me to cross my legs wrong," or something.
right.
I think the
All
dad
the
was
time.
trying to like not to for him not to get beat up at school. He's trying to like I don't think his father was doing what he did out of callousness or coldness, but just people love each other, but yet make mistakes that hurt each other. And
Well, I guess the one difference between you and I is I have kids. I have a son and a daughter, and my son is 31 now. And he's really interested in theater and the arts and has been his whole life, and that's what he does now. And we have this conversation a lot about sort of teased him a lot at first, but now we talk about it as it comes up about how in some of his favorite cartoons, the dads were just absent. Um, Pokemon, for instance, like which is one of his favorite cartoons when he was little, the lead character is a guy named Ash Ketchum, and he goes around, I guess, Japan or wherever he is with his friends. And I would always say to my son, like, "Where's the dad?" Because the dad, because I would be like, the dad would say, like, "You got to be home at 5. Like, what are you doing in this forest? I told you not to hang out with that kid." And I think not only is it hard to be a parent, to be a dad, but I think Hollywood writ large, I guess, the culture has a real tough time with it too. It's like if you want to get the story going, you want this kid to have adventures. What are you going to do with a dad who wants him home at 5?
Yeah.
It's like, like he died. He's in the army. I know they do them all, but they don't do it with the dad sort of sitting there. So,
Mhm.
I do think it's, yeah, I do. I'm thinking about my relationship with my son, about girls and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, it is all awkward. You don't want to put too much on them from your past. You want them to kind of be their own person, even in these days. And I, I don't know. But you just want so much. You just want it to be so much better for them, maybe than it was for you, right? At the bottom line. So when you hear, I think it's in human nature when you hear that it's not going as well. It's hard sometimes to really kind of, um, yeah, accept that or something. So it's hard. Yeah. But it's like that's why I thought that those conversations with the mom and the dad, sometimes when they're done, I think they're overdone when you do them right. Sometimes if you watch a movie with gay themes and like the dad says everything perfect,
Mhm.
that's the other extreme. You have the dad says all the right things, like, oh, I had, be yourself and
Yeah.
you know, go off to Greenwich Village. And you know what I mean? And you're like, well, that's not real life, right? So, but this one really just felt like, right, that it was like the dad was struggling. It was awkward. The mom was
Mhm.
distraught, uh, could barely hold it together. Um, they were just so wounded. And so, like, in their 1987 ways about it, right? They grappled with it, but it was done tenderly or somehow. I don't know.
Well, yeah, and they came full circle there before they
Yeah,
end. They
yeah.
came to terms with things fairly quickly.
And they
Um,
didn't press him on how lonely he was, right? They didn't.
no, no,
Yeah, they didn't.
no.
Yeah,
The mother had this kind of, or the dad says she's constructed stories. So she had a narrative about how she thought his life was going to be. And then
right.
she found out it wasn't that. And so it took her a while to say, okay, well, he's
Did
got
they?
this other life. And
Did she ask them if he had a partner and stuff?
she
I
asked
guess
if he had a girlfriend. She said,
girlfriend,
I don't see a ring. Do you have a girlfriend? That's when he told her when she's making the tea.
right? But even after when they found out he was gay, they did. Did they ask him about a partner? I don't. Maybe they did.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
Um,
they were kind of curious about his life, though. That was for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, any other things you want to throw out there about the movie Quakerly or otherwise values?
Oh, you go first. I'll think. Let me think while you must you.
I think we've talked about the equality thing, equality, the testimony of equality. Um, I mean, I think was just illustrated in the fact of um, maybe the gay thing as far as seeing his life equal to what their dreams for him had been. And I think eventually they did see him sort of in his full self, or maybe it's not equality, maybe it's more integrity, his whole self towards the end, and we're okay with his uh, integral person. personhood.
Talk about that. The one thing I thought that you talked about when we talked before that I thought was so eloquent was we're talking about Harry, the other main character, his family, and what
Hmm.
he said about how his family treated him, and that he was always on the edge.
Oh, right. Yeah, they accepted him. That's an example of equality, not really equality that's a fake equality, where he said, the character says, his family have gotten used to the idea that he's gay, but he's been pushed to the edge of the family. And his brothers and sisters who are married and have kids, some of them are at the center of the family's attention and the family, and he has been pushed to the edge. And I think that's very common experience among gay people sometimes, is that being accepted, or is because being accepted just because you've gotten used to the idea is not really the same thing as being treated with equality. And I think that's sometimes easy for people to do. Say, well, I'm not treating anybody any different. I'm okay with whoever they want to love or whatever is fine. And it's not just about gay people, but I'm fine with this subset of this culture. It's fine, but you're really saying it's fine over there, and it's not fine front and center at Thanksgiving. It's for over there. And so there's a subtle way of doing that socially that people in minority groups, I think, or marginalized people can recognize that they're being pushed to the edge in any kind of situation. So yeah, I had forgotten about that. That was a fantastic conversation between the two characters where they're talking about their life, because
And
they're
that's
getting
a
to know each other at that point. Yeah.
and that's a message for Quakers, I think. And as we make people feel that they belong in our meetings, and we talk about belonging and opening and being welcoming and hospitable,
Hmm.
that it's not that we have to get over that easy part and make it to the hard part of putting people front and center, and not just use those easy words, but really, really kind of work constantly to make people feel that they belong.
Hmm. And that
As
everybody
as
belongs everybody belongs at the Thanksgiving table. Everybody belongs in the
right,
center, not on the
right,
edge.
right. And if some people aren't so thrilled about the 4th of July because of what it meant for slavery,
Hmm.
you don't you kind of have to meet them halfway. You don't over celebrate I think you have to kind of look out for things and change things. Don't leave things the same. I think that's the hard part. Is I think we should be adapting ourselves to the people that come in, not them adapting to us. We have to put them at the Thanksgiving table. That's a great way to say it. But you can't just do that's just you can't sit people down and say you're at the table. It's over. You
Yeah,
know, it's really like 24/7
yeah. You got
thoughtfulness.
to set them at the table, and you got to talk to them. You got to offer them
Right.
coffee. You got to offer them a second piece of pie. You got to interact with them. I mean, they got to be part of the Thanksgiving meal, not just at the table.
Right. And
Um,
when they say they don't like this practice or that practice, you say, okay, well, yeah, okay, we hear you.
yeah,
We're gonna,
you see where where we can all,
yeah, you have to, yeah,
yeah, where we all can readjust
yeah,
and try to have as many people fit in, everybody feel equal, and
yeah,
that's Quaker testimony there.
yeah.
Um,
Hmm. Well, thank you for inviting me. I
yeah,
appreciate
I
it.
hope we can catch another movie soon.
Yeah, definitely.
I think movies are fun ways to just explore topics. I didn't really know this was not necessarily planned, so we went off into some really interesting areas, and I think it's so fun to talk about stuff like this. So thanks for joining me. We will do this again with another movie sometime in the future.
Good
And
luck with your good. I support this project. It's really great that you're doing it. It's awesome.
yeah, I think it's going to be fun. So yeah, we'll more to come.
Good.
So, all right.
All
See you
right.
later.
All right. Good night.